Well, welcome everybody to Demystifying Government Contracting. So good to see you. I know many of you may have been saying, where is the crew, right? The crew, the amazing experts and human beings who have committed to enabling and educating the small business community. Where were they last night? Well, I had a little hiccup. I made the meeting or the session for today versus yesterday. So we had a couple of us that did impromptu yesterday, and we talked about why it's important to target your ideal client. And today we're going to be talking about, creating that client profile for your company, or it should be you're going to have several profiles. Hopefully, if you're just starting out, you don't have too many. But before we get started, I'm Michelle Gardner-Ince, and it's so good to have you join with us on LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube. I'm joined by my sister in service, Lori Smith, CEO of AccuElegant, former VA contracting officer, consummate acquisition professional, soon to be Dr. Lori. She's doing her finalizing her dissertation. And let me know, Lori, if I need to come over there and beat anybody up. They talk about not awarding you that PhD. I'll get them and bring some folks with me. I'm just saying, because I heard that can be a very stressful process. But just let them know they don't want to mess with this one. They don't mess with Dr. Lori, because we're coming for them. But Lori was the director of the community care program and acquisition effort at the Department of Veteran Affairs before she retired, ensuring that our nation's veterans could receive care no matter where they are, whether they were near a medical center or not. So I do want to say thank you, my sister, for your unwavering support and welcome tonight.
Thank you, and always humbled to serve.
Awesome, awesome. Well, we're gonna go ahead and get started because we got a lot to talk about. But I do want to, put our disclaimer up here. We want you to know that we do give you accurate information. There's no shortage of information. I haven't Googled it in a while, but if you Google government contracting or federal contracting, you come up with millions of results. So there's no shortage of information, but there is shortage of context of that information. And that's what we attempt to do here on Demystifying Government Contracting, is that we want you to know, what does the information mean to you and your company at this point in your business journey. What we do ask you to do is trust but verify. Our opinions and views are our own. You can go to my LinkedIn and see the first featured page is my GI disclaimer, because I work for the Department of Veteran Affairs in the Small Business Office. But we also want you to consult your business advisors, your tax, your accountants, and your lawyers, because just because you hear someone did something a certain way doesn't mean that particular model is applicable to your company or where your company is on its point in the journey. So again, we want to thank you for joining. Want to also ask you to put your questions in the chat, and as I said, we're blessed to have Miss Lori here. Now we're joined by Miss Chanel Glover. So glad that you could join us, Chanel. It was great last night, and we're going to continue it tonight. Chanel, as I said last night, is an old soul. She's been here before. She got about 100 years of experience in that young body and mind, and she is taking that expertise to the LA, California small business community, where she's an advisor to the chamber and city and other organizations who are seeking to increase equity in government contracting. She's been a federal employee. She's been a contractor, but now she and her company are all about helping not only tech companies but others transition into the federal government. And she does that as a business advisor and coach. So welcome.
Thank you, Michelle. I'm happy to be here, and thank you for this platform. And thank you for everyone who's attending. And Lori, it's great to see you again.
Yes, our cohort in crime, huh? I know, I know, I
Yes,
know.
yes.
Absolutely.
Lori and I will be starting our out here in LA County, our training on Monday with the county's program.
Amazing. Congratulations to you all on that.
Thank
And
you.
how blessed that community is to have both of you, the dynamic duo, to help them along on their journey. So I'm going to spend a few minutes. We talked yesterday about, um, targeting your ideal client. Today, I'm going to talk about the framework for creating a client profile for a government organization. So if you don't have your pencil, pen, iPad, you may want to do that. And appreciate you making comments in the chat. And Lori and Chanel, while I'm teaching, if you'll, make sure you kind of keep an eye on the chat in case some questions come up. And then after I finish teaching about this client profile, then I'm going to talk and with my amazing colleagues and experts on the stage and get their input. So when we're, understanding about profiling your ideal client in the government means going beyond naming a large agency. Most of the time when I talk with folks and I say, hey, who's your client? They say, oh, the VA, oh, the Army, oh, the Navy. And they don't get down to specific offices. What this framework is intended to do is to help you create a detailed client profile, focusing on the people, because people do business with people who they know, like, and trust. And it is a person in the agency or in the organization or a group of people, if it's a technical evaluation team and they all work in the organization, it's going to be a group of people who are going to help you, or ensure that you're awarded that particular contract or that particular opportunity. Sorry, we got cooking in the backgrounds, but I'm gonna keep going. The alarm's going off. Um, so this framework will help you create a detailed profile, and it's all about building meaningful relationships and to secure contracts. I'm going to pause a little bit. Lori, Chanel, can you jump in while I see if I can get this alarm off?
Lori?
Well, absolutely. Thank you so much. Hopefully she'll come back because I don't want to.
I'm back.
Okay, there we go.
I'm back, but I just didn't want to. I didn't know how long it was going to last, so I didn't want to, have it beeping in the background. I don't know how much y'all could hear it coming from the kitchen, but it was loud to me. But step one of the framework, identify the agency and a specific office. Define the agency. Start by identifying broader agency that your business is targeting. Let's just say, example, DOD. Then you want to drill down to specific offices. What specific office is relevant to the services and products that you're providing, right? And so a lot of that research is done in whether it's USA Spending, sam.gov. It can be the budget. It can be FPDS. There's a lot of different sources, but let's say you're now going to target a specific office in DOD, like the Undersecretary of Defense for Acquisition and Sustainment. Just pulled that out of nowhere. Then you're going to say, who are the key decision makers and influencers? Most people automatically go to the top of the chain, right? They look at, oh, it's the secretary, it's this senior executive. I have a saying that the further away you are from the sheep, the less you smell like it. Smell like the sheep, and you definitely don't smell like the shit. Excuse my language. So, it really is about figuring out who are the people who have the influence and the authority and even decision making at those middle levels. That's generally somewhere between the 13s, 14s, and the GS 15s, right? Research your organizational charts. Review the chart of the specific office. Identify key roles such as directors, managers, and key staff members. And there's a document called the FOM, the VA FOM, the VA Functional Organizational Manual. And when you look at that particular manual, it not only tells you, oh, this is the organization, but it also will tell you these are the regulations and the laws, the authorities that particular office is adhering to, and that goes back to you know SAM, right? Solve their problem, address their issue, meet their needs. And if you're going to be targeting a specific decision maker in a specific office, you need to know, why does that office exist? What problem are they solving? What issues are they addressing? And then you definitely want to know what segment, in this case of the VA, what segment of the VA population are they serving? So the FOM, will tell you exactly give you overview. It'll tell you what activities it does. It'll tell you here are the business functions, the things that it does. It will also tell you these are the regulatory and law references or authorities, and then you then have a better idea about why that organization is doing what they're doing, buying what they're buying, and how can you position yourself in a way to make you part of their solution, where they say, "Oh my God, where have you been all my life?" And so the second thing you want to do after you research the organizational charts, LinkedIn is understated, and I'm not just saying that because I'm a LinkedIn, top voice. I keep saying LinkedIn is where business is done. There are over 1 billion people on LinkedIn at this time. So you want to use your professional networks and to find out, where are these people's roles, right? You can go to people that you may know and say, hey, do you know this person? There's something in LinkedIn called the search box. And if you go in that search box and you put in, and I just did this out of happenstance because he wanted to sell to people who have purchase cards, and I went in and I put in there purchase card, government purchase card manager, and it came up with more than I think it was 1,800 people either had that job description or previously had that job description. And then you go to another selection in the filter and you click current organization. You can either type it in or you can select it. And it will then dwindle that number down. And so that then allows you to then zero in on that particular person, that particular role. But first, you have to understand who are the key roles at the lower levels, and sometimes you got to do some work. But if you put in, just keywords, I was just doing that with somebody else earlier today. They wanted to sell to the VA canteen, which is like the VA's retail store, and we found people that had their names buyers on there. So that is I call it, if you want that to be automated, they have what they call Sales Navigator. I don't have, I've been testing it, but I already canceled the subscription because I don't think I'll use it. But I'm just kind of dabbling in it because it may be worth paying for depending on where you are, where you can set up different searches and leads through that LinkedIn Navigator. But you don't, all you have to have is a premium account to do it on your own and to do it manually. Then what you want to do after you know the roles, the specific organization, and that gets down to a single office, not, oh, it's VA, not it's VHA. No, it is not DOD, and then, oh, it's, Army. No, you're getting down to the specific office. You're doing that through researching the organizational charts. You're going to leverage LinkedIn and your professional networks. And then you're going to create an influence map, right? And you're going to visualize what relationships have the most influence within that office. And you want to understand who makes the decisions. Part of how you can do that is you can listen to congressional testimony. You can look at GAO reports. You can read, social media and look at the agency office website when you see who's listed there or who's quoted. Another thing you could do is look at, professional associations. When people are inviting certain people to speak at professional associations like AFCEA, the National Contract Management Association, all these, SAMI, which is for construction, all these different organizations are inviting key thought leaders from agencies. And so you want to pay attention when that person's name, follow them, put the ring button on so that you will know then, hey, they're going to be there and that's where I need to be. One of the things I'm big on is people run to all these generic kind of industry days, but the people who really make the decisions are not necessarily there. So the first one was, identify the specific agency. Then you want to really identify who the key decision makers and influencers are by researching. And then 3, you want to define what is the client's attributes. And when I say that, that means it, that gets down to what most people are commonly doing. What's the organization's budget and size? You want to know, what scope of the kind of projects do they pursue, and how do they buy, right? Not just, I always say it's not just what they buy, but how do they buy? When do they buy? And and where do they buy? Oftentimes it may be, in a different region or a different location. And then step 4, you want to understand the client's needs or challenges. That's so important. And that's why, I don't know if other agencies produce a functional organizational manual, but I need to probably research that. But I think it's kind of cool that the Air Force, not the Air Force, that the VA specifically is giving that to you. They're giving you the functions, they're giving you the authorities and all of that, as well as the overall organizational charts, right? So now that you've done understanding their needs, and you're going to be doing that through market research, social media, all different kinds of, I love GAO reports because when you Google a keyword in a GAO report, and you find that one agency or three agencies were written up for that, well, the beauty of the GAO, the Government Accounting Office, reports are that is an investigative arm of the U.S. Congress. And so what happens then is uh, every agency has to ensure, just because they weren't written up or they weren't investigated, they are accountable for ensuring that same issue is not happening at their agency. Then, the last thing you want to do is, and that's how you're going to help identify the pain points, right? Um, you know, it's so important to understand their pain, understand why are they buying this? Why are they doing this? Why are they serving, their clients or their constituents? Why is the government spending tax dollars on solving this issue, addressing, um, the needs, or solving that problem? You want to know that. And so when you're, engaging uh, with your client, and you have an opportunity, I tell everybody, if you get 30 minutes to an hour, stop talking, stop selling, because the government doesn't buy on the first date, right? When you submit your unsolicited proposal in the form of a pitch, it's a proposal. It is, they don't have to say yes, and 90% of the time they don't say yes on the very first engagement. I was reading something and talking with a colleague who's been in sales, and he says it takes an average of 7 touches and engagements before a client really starts to trust you. And then another study was done that said it takes 2 to 3 years from handshake to contract in the government. Now, I know in other, industries outside commercial, city, state, it may happen sooner than that. It may even happen like that in the federal government, but generally, it is a product, not a service. All these people where you see, oh, I got a contract real quick, they're selling a product. All these YouTube, they're selling a product. They're selling something like at a level where somebody can pull out a a um, a purchase card and buy it. And I'm not, saying there's anything wrong with that. I'm just saying that don't get fooled, and you want to um, really focus on engaging and understanding the client, because you're not going to be on the inside, on the other side of that door every day. So you want to understand as much as you can each meeting, each level. You should be improving your pitch deck, improving your understanding of the agency, so that by the time the proposal or the solicitation comes out, you can tailor your proposal. And then, conduct interviews, ask them about their pain points, ask them, hey, if you were king or queen for a day, what would you do? And then step 5 is buying triggers, right? Understanding the procurement cycles, the policy changes, when budgets are approved, for an example. And then also, procurement cycles. Are they buying this every year, every 5 years, every 10 years? Are they only buying it once? Those are the kind of things that you want to, you're going to want to um, pay attention to. So I'm going to go back over those real quick. One was um, identify the office with specific office within the agency. Step 2 is identifying the key decision makers and influencers. Step 3 is, what are their attributes, as far as budget, size, what kind of scope of projects do they have? What is their culture? Are they very politically inclined? You look at agencies like energy, right, where a lot of politics in energy. You look at VA, a lot of politics at VA. You look at Department of Transportation, a lot of infrastructure money tied there. So, there's all of the agencies have some political influence, but some agencies have more political influence than others. And then, understanding the client's needs and challenges, conducting market research, engaging with clients, identifying their pain points through social media, website, news. Even you can even identify, their pain points by hearing, what are people lobbying about? IG reports, GAO reports, and then 5, what are their buying triggers? What triggers them to buy? Was there a policy change? Was there recent budget approval? And then what are their procurement cycles? Like, for example, understanding policy changes. I remember when the news came out about COVID and them trying to figure out how to store and transport COVID vaccines. The first thing in my mind, I said, oh, somebody needs some refrigerator trucks. This is opportunity. But there were a lot of people who just saw that as regular news. If you see a building under construction, something's happening. There's opportunity for restaurants, janitorial, courier services, window washing, plants. You have to think differently in when you see news and understanding your clients. That's all I have. I think I want to ask our amazing experts, Lori and Chanel. What do you think? What do you have to add? And let's talk about it.
Well, Michelle, this Lori, I really don't have much to add because you're quite detailed, but I think you're spot on as it relates to, identifying the people, inside of the organization and at the right level. And the resources and the information that you also share, is those little nuggets like that, helps people, get over their own overwhelm, so, but identifying the right people, knowing how to go and do a whole lot of different research. I mean, it really does help because there's information in places and sources that, folks just never imagined, and so it's incumbent upon us to, identify those, but then also share because some of it is specifically unique. But engagement is the key. Talking and engaging with the right person is vital. And then giving those people grace that you're trying to reach out. And that's why, we often talk about people needing not only a communication plan, but an engagement plan. And if you have either of those, you have structure to how you want to go about your communication, but so does everyone else in your organization. And then you're able to track and identify, okay, who did I engage? When did I engage? What's an acceptable amount of time? Those are policies and things that you can put in place so that, you got your rhythm. And so, but it was great information. So I really do appreciate it.
Thank you. Chanel?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Yes, I would recommend for client profiling. One thing companies can do besides introducing themselves is to make sure that they do the market research to find out how and you can do market research through some of the publicly available information to find out how your customer buys or even your teaming partners, how much work they have with the certain customer in a line of business, with what codes they're using. But to really find out how your customer buys, because sometimes people are tracking and pursuing customers that may buy through like a larger component. For example, within USDA, they could be tracking the program office, and the purchase may be made from the head CFO's office. So to follow the money, find out how the customer buys and when they are purchasing, because everyone does not purchase high volumes that year and for everything. So that's something that you can use, like just the publicly available information. Then also in November, the AFRs, the agency financial reports, will be coming out, and they have strategies in them. Most of them have a strategy for at least between 1 to 5 years, and also ongoing issues and remediation plans. These are things that you can read to find out what your customers doing now, what they plan to do in the future, and things that they need to remediate or address right away. That's like low hanging fruit. These are things that you can get without even reaching out to the customer. It's free information. So just learning how to use business development and capture tools that do not cost. I know I just finished up a conversation where companies are feeling like they're potentially wasting money on BD and capture, but a part of that is to go capture when go out for capture when you're ready, or go hire people for support when you have already built out certain things, like writing up your capabilities in great detail. What do you have references? Do you have professional corporate references? That's another thing that companies struggle with. Does your client require you to have corporate business experience, or are they accepting your professional experience? So if you've been in the field for 20 years and you go bid 20 years experience, and you were 10 years a career person and 10 years a business, you may be disqualified because you don't understand the requirements. So that's why you have to make sure you understand the requirement. Know what your customer's looking for. Some customers are putting in RFPs that if you have teaming opportunity agreements, have you ever bidded with this company before? How much experience do you have together? And that was something that's unique that I've seen in a couple of RFPs. Also, who's writing your proposal? Does that your proposal writer, your proposal strategist, and your SMEs, how are they telling your story? The owners and the executive teams need to get involved, because if you're not capturing and you're spending a lot of money on BD and capture, you need to just keep going to go revisit your strategy, or the story you're telling. Are you going to pursue customers that just don't want to do business with you? Everyone is not your ideal customer. So if you're pursuing a customer for 2 and 3 years, there are lots of federal agencies out here. They all have a budget. Everyone goes after the same, seem to go after the same large agencies. There are smaller agencies and agencies that you may not have heard of, but guess what? They have a budget too. You can go profile them. You can go into places where they are. And then the last thing I would say is, when you're speaking to people is, and I know I said this yesterday, but please know the role, responsibility, and where they come in the process, because you could be dismissive of someone that has the ability or authority to introduce you to maybe their higher ups, or you never know, they may be a part of the decision making. So knowing who you're speaking to, and then know when people aren't able to talk to you. So the rules of engagement. Some I talk to people often, and they'll get upset if they try to have certain types of conversations or call it during certain times, and people aren't answering, or they're short. Sometimes they cannot engage with you about certain things. It's a timing thing. When there's active solicitations out, and they could be posed as a competitive advantage, some people are not going to have a conversation with you, or you may be talking to them a year from when they're actually going to be funded. And some of these things you can find in the acquisition forecast. So if you're coming to me to talk to me about something, like I'm going to fund a project, and I'm in those, if I put myself in a federal personnel seat, and you're talking to me about something that I already put out that says we're going to fund 1 to 2 years from now, and you're constantly calling, that's not a good strategy. Checking in, yes, but harassing people and pressing things, it doesn't make people want to do business with you when you're not using the information that they've already given you, and then also when you're being an aggressive salesperson versus a potential partner.
So what do you say? So good, so many nuggets in there, and I hear everything you're talking about in engaging the client is really about relationship and soft skills, and I know that's a passion of Lori's. And Lori, would you like to either share a story or give some words of wisdom? Because I keep running into people who say, "Oh, they don't want to help me. They're not trying." Or they'll say, they didn't give me the answer. What's your response to that?
Well, everything that Chanel, just said, and even what you communicated, again, everything is spot on. And the one thing that sort of like triggered something, because I did a session today for the Florida Minority Small Business Development Council, and one of the things I talked about and I communicated in there, and is if understanding the rhythm of the government, your process as a small business is actually the same. You're going to do your own market research, and we call it customer research. And that's what Chanel and you both have hit on, is really about doing the research of the customer. And then as you're doing that research of that customer, you're going to get into as you're taking notes, documenting things, you're going to be formulating questions to ask. But during that whole process, you do have to demonstrate empathy. You have to put yourself in the shoes of that government person as it relates to the timeliness and the expectation of a response. And to Chanel's point, if they have already programmed and told you they're going to be pursuing an effort of 18 months to a year, 2 years down the road, if that's something you're targeting, now that is your time. Aside from other little low-hanging fruit you go out to get to keep the bills and the lights on. But if this major project is something you want, that is the time for you to do all your due diligence, all the resources and the recommendations that Chanel just mentioned about where you can find information. That is the time you go start gathering your information. Because at the end of the day, you have to understand and know the customer to the point that as of your talk, Michelle. People got to know the customer that they're pursuing and understand that customer and know the rhythm of the procurement process and know when stuff is and isn't going to be bought. And if we can start doing that, again, still being intentional about what we're doing, having a plan for not just winning government contracts, you got to have everything requires a plan. What is your proposal plan? Do you have a proposal strategy? Are you formulating that information? Because what I will say, sometimes when you're absent the actual past performance experience and the government, then you can leverage and articulate the significance and the value of those SMEs and those key leaders that you have that have all that experience. You could potentially sort of level set a bit and still edge yourself in, because at the end of the day, government is going to give you a neutral if you don't have the right amount of past performance, or to it. You either, if you don't have it, you don't have it. I mean, it's rated neutral, and that confidence in you may not be as high. Nevertheless, if you can capture and pick it up in your technical and your management approach to it, you may be able to parlay the fact that you don't have as much experience. But it's really about doing due diligence, understanding how to communicate with folks. And at the end of the day, we are all human. And you are one of how many thousands or hundreds of thousands or millions of businesses that's potentially picking at them. And so be mindful of that, because they are just one person, and that office is going to be small, because especially in that contracting arena, because to Chanel's point, when active requirements are on the streets, they're going to be limited in what they can say. And there's always someone that's got an uncle in some congressional office, might trying to drop a name, and they got to manage all of that. And heaven forbid, if it's a highly political project or requirement like CCN was for us, you also have to manage all of that as well. So give people some grace and just be mindful of that. But if you have a plan, as Michelle has talked about all night long, if you're put together a plan, you have a strategy, those are risks and things that you can mitigate all within yourself. But be kind and be nice, because trust me, cupcakes during the end of fiscal year will sure get you closer to somebody. That's just about what I know. But just be nice. Mm-hmm.
And thank you, because being nice, I think, is underrated. And there is a spirit of entitlement. Well, you supposed to talk to me. You're supposed to help me. And I said, yes, yes. That's in most people who are in this small business arena. It's in their job description. But there's you and thousands of others. That job description doesn't have archaeologist in in the job position description. It's got thousands of others, and you know, I'm seeing a trend of businesses saying negative things about government people or government offices, and I go into my never, 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 never do that ever, because um, the GovCon space is small.
Very.
And I said, you don't know, you might be talking about my friend over there. And if I didn't like you, I go over there and tell them. And I said, look, just be kind, be patient. Government people are people too. Give them grace. They only have 40 hours a day. Most of them work more than that, and they are committed to doing it. But you must be patient and you must be persistent. Period.
Yeah. And if you're gonna be chasing someone down, come with the receipts and the qualifications to do that. I recall an occurrence at when I was at Fort Belvoir. We had a contractor, and he really was just overextended. And I tried to work with him, and we ended up having to terminate his contract, but I didn't terminate him for a default, which council conferred and said, okay, Lori, let's do this here because it was something I took over. But before that, it was just very messy managed. It was just poorly managed at the ground level. But through his anxiousness, he had a few political connections, and all he would do is go from one event to the other event, get with the admirals. He would get with anybody in a uniform and just talk about how the government was mistreating him and how the folks was doing this and how the folks was doing that. But it became a point whereas in he had lost so much control in telling his story, it became hysterical. So it was always aspects of hysterics. And so that's how he was being perceived as like, okay, this guy is crazy. And so every time someone would leave the conference or a ball or event, they are talking about him. Hey, maybe you all need to have security. This guy is dangerous. So it becomes, you get to this point, you say so many negative things, and you don't care where you're saying it at or who hear you. Now you went into the dangerous person arena. And so folks have to be mindful of that. But at the end of the day, and I get protective about when they talk about government, period, sometimes, especially when they talk about the VA. But when we're in the contracting space, again, there are very few people that are doing this work, and it is awesome work. And if you can just even think last year the VA did about 28 or 29 million transactions. So when you're thinking that these agencies are doing transactions in the millions, some of them, and so that's a lot of work. And they don't have a million people. So there's not a transaction per person. It's not no 5-to-1. The ratio typically is extremely imbalanced. So be mindful of that. But again, if you have a plan and if you're operating in your plan and allowing it and just being patient with it, you can't rush it. And that's why it's important that you prepare, you do your due diligence. We're posturing, we're positioning. And I think people will be able to realize efficiency at the pace and it'll scale as they desire to scale, because they put a system in place, they work that system, and it's being meaningful to them. We have to meet, because at the end of the day, the goal should be to I'm going to do my due diligence so that I can make these numbers make sense. I was so grateful to see even Steve Prince print out today, put out his little note about a lot of folks are always talking about these mandates for these numbers and that. And I tell people, no, Congress provide guidance, and that guidance is interpreted as a goal. A goal is something I'm striving to be, not something that I gotta do. However, the government is trying to compel people to be more compliant with the goals. Nevertheless, we got to do our due diligence to make sure those numbers change. Let us respond to RFIs, respond to sources swap, show up at the right meetings, getting the information. And to Chanel's point, all of these online resources that sometimes you don't even have to leave your house. If you do things right, you can write a proposal and respond to something, and they'll thank you as at Thanksgiving dinner every year because you're just that familiar with them.
That's what I love, y'all. I don't know those of you who are listening, Jonathan, Ebony, and others who may not be commenting, but that's what I love about these amazing human beings that come here every week. We're gonna tell it like it is. You may, people aren't always going to tell you like it is, and when you hear it like it is, please know it's in love, because these individuals are business owners, successful in their own right, and easily could be spending an hour each week doing something else. But they've decided to come here and be committed to helping the underserved communities be more successful by giving them insight and context on what it's like to do business in the government. And so I want to thank everybody for joining. Any last words, Chanel, before I go into the business benediction?
Yes, quickly. This is something that happens all year round, but more so at year end. Make sure when you reach out to professionals or technical assistance centers for support that you're ready to do your part. There are people here to assist you and even provide services for you. Make sure you understand when you're hiring people what their part is, what your expectations are, and what you're looking for as far as outcomes. Because you will play some part, whether you're the owner of a large firm and you just participating in strategy meetings, or for us small businesses, some of us are still involved in the writing and making and interacting with the customers on a day-to-day basis. So just know that GovCon, I know that some of the messaging on social media and other places says like, hey, this is this easy thing, is a quick money thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lucrative field if if you're able to get in. There's lots of opportunities, but it's work. It's not something that just handed to you. And then once you get in the customer space, that's when you're really going to start working, because you have to, yes, you can secure a contract, but what about maintaining the contract, being able to deliver and expanding your portfolio? That's where your real work starts. So just be willing to do the work, especially when you're reaching out for assistance, whether it's paid or free. Make sure you're ready to do your part.
So true. And know that even if when you go to the Apex accelerators, they're not doing it for you. You have to do work. You have to do work. Congratulations, Ebony. Um, uh, so happy that you were able to get your SD, VOSB, and you got your first contract. Bless you. We appreciate that, knowing that we have value, that we're impacting the success of small businesses. That's huge. So I want to say congratulations. And I see you've been quite active on here. Relationships matter. I see you also, Jonathan. Yep, having a pipeline, but it's a proper pipeline. A suspect, not a prospect. A suspect is, everything says they got something for you. They did something, right? They need you. A prospect is, well, I don't know, I still got to check, maybe not. There's not enough evidence. A suspect is what we're looking for to have in our pipeline. So I do want to thank these amazing humans, Lori Smith, soon to be Dr. Lori Smith, and Chanel Glover. We'll be continuing our really narrowing in on our client, um, targeting our client. And so, next week we're going to be talking about, how do you engage? Because a lot of people, they don't know how to engage the client. And so we'll be narrowing in on that. And so stay tuned. We'll be back on Wednesday at 7 o'clock to 8 o'clock p.m. I do want to close out with, as I say, the named by my wonderful sister as the business benediction, inspired by the prayer of Jabez in the Bible. May God bless you. May God bless you indeed. May He enlarge your territory. May He increase your influence. May He prosper your business. May He order your steps. May He open doors that no man can shut. May He make your vision plain. May He restore what has been stolen or broken. May He keep you from evil and keep evil from you, because we all know it can be ugly out there. But most of all, may God bless you, bless you, bless you indeed. We will see you next week, next Wednesday, 7 p.m. God bless and good night. Thank you so much for joining us.
Amen. God bless you. Goodbye,
Bye.
everyone.
Good night. Good night.
Good night.